evening. Good to have you with us on the weekend edition of the Urban Debate. Taliban is making rapid advances towards Kabul as they reach now, we understand, the outskirts of the Afghan capital. In fact, in the last few days, it's pretty much been like a blitzkrieg. And now reports suggest that over 70% of Afghanistan has already been captured. A stunning collapse, really, for the government forces that were reportedly trained and equipped by the Western powers for over 2 decades. Hundreds of Afghans have already had to move from their homes, get into refugee camps. Many others are trying to get out of the country amidst fears of a brutal and repressive Taliban rule. Now, the President Ashraf Ghani tried to put up a brave front, saying remobilizing the Afghan Defense Forces is going to be their top priority, although there is very little left right now in terms of the big provinces and the big cities that he can even defend. So let's tell you what's happened today. Reports suggest Taliban is just 10-15 kilometers away from Kabul, very close to Kabul now. Of course, US troops in Kabul are helping with evacuation. Many of the Western nations are now quickly trying to get their people out. India, in the last couple of days, also issued advisories asking citizens to come back. So you actually see a lot of crowd thronging at the Kabul airport. Taliban has also captured 4 other provinces, crucial ones. Reports also came out of how fighting had broken out, heavy fighting on the outskirts of Mazar-e-Sharif, the other big one the Taliban will now be eyeing. Afghan president said won't allow instability, but I don't think anybody is taking that as any kind of assurance with Taliban at the gate of Afghanistan. Tonight we focus on what's happening there, what it means for Afghanistan, for India, this region. I say good evening to Maruf Raza, strategic affairs expert, joining us this evening, Ambassador Achal Malhotra, former diplomat and foreign policy expert. But first, I want to go across to Hamid Hydari, editor-in-chief of One TV News AF. Good evening, Mr. Hydari, and thank you for joining us. Can you first, tell us what is the situation currently in Kabul and just how close are these Talibani forces?
Thank you so much. Good evening to my friends. As you have been mentioned before, that nowadays there is intense fighting in outskirts of Mazar-e-Sharif in Balkh province. When I have talked with my colleagues in northern Afghanistan, especially in Balkh province, there is heavy fighting between Afghan security forces and the Taliban in the outskirts of Mazar-e-Sharif. Still, the Taliban has not succeeded to enter in the city because there is Abu Muhammad Noor with his fighters, Afghan security forces, and General Abdul Rashid. Also, on the other hand, the Taliban has surrounded Kabul from 3 or 4 parts of the country. And yesterday they have taken Logar province and Maidan Shah, which is near to Kabul city. And there is a lot of uncertainty in Afghanistan, and no one knows that will happen in the future because the Taliban has taken most of the other provinces in the past 1 or 2 weeks. No one has believed that the Taliban would be reached and will be taken these provinces as soon as possible. But the situation is so much complicated, and no one knows because still there is a fighting on the outskirts of Mazar-e-Sharif, and I think are waiting for the order of their commanders. Do they want to attack Kabul or not? Because nowadays we have tonight some US troops and other countries, especially UK, are trying to redeploy some troops in Kabul airport, as they have said these troops are for the evacuation of their staffs, the embassy staff. The others are remaining in Kabul, and the people are also looking and seeing what is happening in the next 24 hours.
The next 24 hours, Mr. Hydari, you say, are of course, going to be very crucial. But today, the Afghan president came out and made an address where he said we are, remobilizing the Afghani forces and, we're going to put up a brave front. Is he going to get any help from any of the corners, or is that just, an assurance simply in words which nobody believes right now? Mr. Hydari.
That's true because today President Ghani came out in a short message. He has been in consultation with the Afghan political leaders and the international community, but in the night he had a meeting with Afghan political leaders, sources in the presidential palace. They have decided for sending a 7 delegation to Doha, and they will talk with Taliban for a stop of attacking on Kabul and other cities that have been remained. Then they would put the way forward for a peace talks. But I believe, but I have reached the sources, and they told me some. And this delegation would have also the resignation of President Ghani, and they will send the message to her.
Okay, what about the residents, the civilians, the refugees who've come from other parts to Kabul? Is there currently enough supplies available for the people, the civilians who are in Kabul currently, and security for them?
It is a very difficult time for Afghan people because I believe there is no one will say that we will win the war in Afghanistan, because it is Afghanistan that is losing. It is the Afghan people who lost everything. It is the wealth we have achieved in the past 20 years in Afghanistan. Nowadays, we have seen a lot of people have been camped from provinces, and they are resettled in parts of Kabul city. The government is trying to reach them, to supply them, to help them, but it is difficult for the Afghan government because the government is trying to manage the situation, to reinforce the Afghan forces, and also to trying to reach on the people who have been displaced and they have come in Kabul, and no one knows how much this resilience will exist and how what will be happening. But it is a difficult time for Afghan people, especially for those who have come across provinces. I had talked with many of them. Some of them have lost their sons, their daughters, their men. They have been killed during the way that they had come to Kabul.
Mr. Hadri, I can totally understand. In fact, some of the, what's going on, some of those horrifying videos that you've also shared on social media just goes on to show what is happening in your country and the pain that the people are going through. Thank you so much for speaking with us. I know difficult times for you, so thank you for joining us right now. Let me now go across to Ambassador Achal Malhotra and Maroof Raza. Maroof, first to you. Something that I realized only a couple of days ago, for a lot of the youngsters today, they actually won't even remember what it was, or they wouldn't know what it was to be under the Talibani regime before the US forces came in. Why is it that we're all talking about it so much right now, and there is so much of, in Afghanistan, so much of fear of what may be coming? If you can just put that in perspective.
See, as far as fear is concerned, the Taliban has a larger-than-life reputation in Afghanistan because of their very brutal approach and a very medieval culture that they have always followed and propagated, and tried to cover it up and give it some kind of respectability by using Islam as an umbrella for their activities. Taliban was really in Afghanistan between 1989 and 1996, more effectively between 94 to 96, when they almost virtually ran the country. There were pockets when they did not have full control. But the fact is that between 96 and 2001, the Taliban also had a very extensive employment of Pakistan's military forces that were being used by Pakistan to again take control directly of Afghanistan. Why? Because Pakistan has always seen, and Pakistan's head of ISI, General Hamid Gul, who in many ways is said to be the creator or the founding father of the Taliban, saw Pakistan, Afghanistan, Central Asia as part of a South Central Asian Republic of Islam. And therefore, they have always wanted to dominate Afghanistan. One reason is that. The second is that in early 1990, after General Zia had died, his successor, General Mirza Aslam Beg, who came from Azamgarh in UP, had articulated a thesis by which The Pakistanis believed that their strategic objective was to secure Afghanistan so that they would keep it as a safe hinterland in the event of an Indian offensive where they'll be driven out there and they will regroup there and come back to fight the Indians. It is a pipe dream, and many others in India and in Pakistan, sensible people never bought that argument. But the army in Pakistan always creates this larger than life objectives so that they can fleece Pakistan of every last penny. Now what is going to happen, the Taliban isn't Taliban per se. The Taliban is essentially the Pakistan army in shalwar kurta with turbans and fighting. The regular army and retired army people are fighting a covert war there, or under the pretense of a covert war using irregular warfare, but trying to win through regular means. They get also satellite cover through the Chinese intelligence that is providing them the lay of the ground. They are using military equipment that they acquired over all these years with American assistance, claiming to fight terrorism, but actually it was being piled up to take control of Afghanistan someday because they knew the Americans will run away from there as they did recently from Bagram.
Right.
The fact that America left it in such a shambles is perhaps one of the lowest points of American foreign policy, whether they admit it or not. They will glorify it in Hollywood films and other Netflix serials by saying Afghan veteran, but quite frankly, they lost that war. And it was obvious they were losing even 10 years ago, but they continued to fight the wrong enemy in the wrong country, to quote Kalrota Gaul and a famous book.
Right.
The enemy was in Pakistan. The
Right.
Taliban today also has its family in Pakistan. The key to everything is Pakistan. And President Ghani making these statements, really no sensible person can buy it because he's himself on borrowed time.
Right.
He'll be lucky to get away with his life, unlike President Najibullah, who was hung on the roadside when the Taliban came the first time in 1992 and took control of Kabul.
Yes.
So Pakistan is the key to the future of Afghanistan, and how Pakistan can be brought to book by putting massive sanctions and the threat of military retaliation. Let me assure you that even now, America can put in a punch into that if it threatens Pakistan, like Armitage did, who was Assistant Secretary of State of the US, and he told Musharraf, you don't fall in line, you don't abandon the Taliban, you don't allow Afghanistan to be free, we will bomb you to Stone Age. Pakistan may be a nuclear weapon state, but they know their nuclear weapons are no match to the penalties that America can bring to bear to them. India, my last point, really should just be on a diplomatic watch, try to get our citizens, about 1,500, I believe few are lesser than 1,500, to be extricated from there sooner than later, because to assume that Kabul will fall and then your planes will be allowed to land on the runway there, forget it. If you remember the hijacking of IC-814, our entire
Talibanis at that time had
establishment was brought
blocked.
to the knees.
Yes.
So Taliban could do that. So we need to get our people out, and we need to leave Afghanistan to the will of God and the major powers if they can get Pakistan to ease off on pressures on the local population and politicians and others who tried to make Afghanistan a civilized, livable country. But quite frankly, this is the biggest failure of the Western narrative of democracy, because they were able to do damn all except shooting down people here and there. More than 250,000 people were either killed or wounded in Afghanistan. And you call that a successful operation? If I was an American, I'd hang my head in shame for the rest of my life.
For them and for the messaging to their own people, they got Al-Qaeda in a sense, and that's what they went in for. For 2 decades, what else they did there, I don't think Americans are interested, Maruf, as wrong as it seems, and the wrong that they've done to the people of Afghanistan. Of course, that's a completely different matter. I also want to bring in Ambassador Malhotra on this aspect, because so there are 2 things that we wanted to focus on tonight. One, of course, is how is it that Taliban has moved in with such great speed? for 2 decades has been, deployment of US forces, and the minute they start to exit in their final stages, Taliban's taken pretty much control of the entire country. And secondly, Ambassador Malhotra, if you agree with what Maruf is saying, that the target has to be Pakistan because that's the one calling the shots at the end of it.
Yes, Tanvi, I entirely agree with Dr. Maruf Raza for his very explicit and detailed, presentation. And I think it's very rightly said that he has quoted someone to very rightly say that Americans are fighting the wrong enemy in the wrong country. I mean, we all know there is no secret about it that it is Pakistan which is trying to play all the game behind the scenes. And if today the so-called Talibani fundamentalist forces are gaining ground, it is also because of the substantial support which they are getting from the Pakistan regular army in one way or the other. Everybody knows about it. The pity is that such a tragedy is going to happen if they actually take control of Kabul. They are already, according to the reports, knocking at the doors of Kabul. And if they do take over, they do once again come into the control. This tragedy is being witnessed by the international community very silently. Nobody seems to be doing anything about it. Whatever is small little lip service they are doing is of no avail for the Afghan people. President Ashraf Ghani is trying to put up a very bold face, but I don't think so. He is in any position without any support from outside to improve the situation that prevails at this point of time.
And I think when he says, I don't want any more deaths and I am doing consultations with senior leaders and seniors and political leaders and the elected representatives and all that, probably he's, discussing the possibilities of his quitting and quitting the country and having a safe escape from here and handing over Taliban. So that would be a very, very tragic, moment once again in the history of Afghanistan, which will have its impact not only for Afghan people, for the region and the world at large. Particularly, India is it's going to be a big setback for India, in terms of its, security concerns. And even if we forget the $3 billion that we have invested into creating assets there, some of the assets may still remain because they are all infrastructure, road, dams, parliament building, all that we have built. Probably they'll be wise enough not to destroy them. But and unfortunately, as far as India's role is concerned, at no point of time we were, in a position to influence the evolving political roadmap for Afghanistan. Our role was cut out only for the re-establishment and rehabilitation and reconstruction of Afghanistan, which we played very well, which got us into the very good books of the Afghan government and also generated a lot of goodwill for the Indians in Afghanistan. But that probably will all now go down the drain.
But do you, Mr. Malhotra, do you agree that there isn't much that we should be doing at this point? Just, diplomatically, just wait and watch what happens. Maybe if there are some refugees who seek our help, we provide that asylum.
Yeah, that if there are refugees, there are already some Afghans living in India, and if more refugees come, probably we should not turn them back. And there is little, the point is, what can we do? We can't make such a big departure from our stated and established policy of giving recognition to a terror organization and we have made it very clear. I think there have been some statements from our leadership that we are not going to be recognizing a government which is, imposed on Afghans through the military means. And probably most of the others will also do that. But what will then happen is that we will have absolutely no, channel of communication with Taliban. But will that matter? That's a very big question. It will be once again back to 1992 to 2001 kind of scenario, when a handful of countries had recognized. The only difference is that if China, at this point of time, they are also they appear to be suggesting that that they will not recognize Taliban if they come by force. But, we all know the Chinese character. And there are trillions of dollars of natural resources which are waiting to be exploited in Afghanistan. And from China's perspective, there are Uyghur Muslim fundamentalist organizations which are reported to have some basis in Afghanistan. So having Taliban on their right side,
Right.
trying to control those forces again goes into their interest. Extending their BRI, the favorite, project of Xi Jinping. Also it suits China that if together with Pakistan, they are in a position to have some. There are very serious concerns for Russia and Central Asia. Narcotics, narcotics international. This Taliban, if Taliban and Pakistan combine comes to power, definitely, Afghanistan is going to become an epicenter for international global terrorism and illicit trafficking in drugs, narcotics, and Central Asia and then Russia. They should be genuinely concerned about it. They are, in fact, particularly, through Central Asia, all this fundamentalism then traveling to the doorsteps of Russia. And narcotics, it's already a very big problem. And this is going to be a very, the substantial source of generating revenue for these kind of forces. They will have absolutely, the state exploiting, this as a source of revenue will have absolutely no shame in doing that. So there are multiple issues that we have every reasons to be concerned. But as a former diplomat, I find I think we are in a position where unfortunately we are not able to influence the course of events in Afghanistan because we find ourselves more or less not getting any substantial support, particularly from the so-called advanced democracies like the Europe and the European Union. They seem to be they have appeared to have decided if Afghanistan is slipping into the hands of Taliban, let it be so. If there are any implications and repercussions for it later for the rest of the world, we'll see when it happens.
But we'll have to watch it very closely either which ways, because in this region it impacts us significantly and will. And like Maruf was saying earlier, because there is a very strong Pakistan link, there is also a very strong terror threat that we will have to watch out for. My apologies, Maruf, but I am completely out of time, so I will have to thank both of you for tonight. But of course, in the coming days, I'm sure we'll have a lot more conversations as Taliban progresses at a very big speed. Really heartbreaking to see what's happening to the people in Afghanistan. The way their land is being torn apart, their nation is being torn apart. Yet again, a country that's constantly on and off been in one or the other kind of conflict. And just when one generation began to believe that things had become better and would turn around and they could actually believe in dreaming a future, it's all gone down the drains again with such a militia, regressive force coming into play and taking control of this country at a very fast speed. And nobody across the world seems to be doing anything about it. In fact, while we told you that Taliban forces are pretty much on the outskirts of Kabul, 10-15 kilometers outside of that, they're also fighting for control over the strategically located Mazar-e-Sharif. It's a city in northern Afghanistan where the insurgents have launched a multi-pronged attack. The city has been surrounded on 3 sides by Taliban and they're engaged in heavy fighting on the outskirts. No immediate word on casualties. The residents of Mazar-e-Sharif, though, who spoke to some of the media outlets there, obviously said that they fear for their safety.
بسیار وضعیت در اطراف در داخل شهر یا در بیرون وضعیت بسیار سراسیمه است. مردم پریشان است. کاروبار به اندازه گم شده که باورت میاد روزانه ما عاید 100 افغانی پیدا کردن نمیتونیم.
در کل وضعیت شهر خیلی رو به خرابی است. حداقل خاص ما به صفت یک جوان که 17 سال 18 سال در شهر زندگی کرده می‌بینیم است که یک آرامش بیاید، یک صلح بیاید، دائمی بیاید جنگ تا وقتی.
With that, it's a wrap on this edition of the weekend edition of the Urban Debate. Thank you for joining us.